Yay, okay. Session 1. HTML5 in JavaScript. Okay, we are about to get started. Right now, as you can probably see, I'm on Facebook. Just sharing the link on Hackwit. So let me just get that up. And, oh, and it might be looping a little bit. Let me adjust that too, so that we don't run into that problem. 2, 3, 9. Okay, copy paste. My computer's really slow. Copy paste. Okay, that doesn't want to work. That's awesome. Oh, there it goes. All right. So, okay, great. Post Facebook so that I can close you. Yay. All right, go away now. Okay, ready. Sorry for that brief, awkward delay. All right, so we're going to get started with session 1. Thanks for coming back. So last time for session 0, we worked on command line stuff, so being able to like create things and navigate through the command line. We did version control with Git. You set up your GitHub account. And then the last thing was we did some brief HTML and a little teeny bit of JS at the end, JavaScript. So today is going to be very JavaScript heavy, pretty much entirely JavaScript. The first thing we're going to do is start by recapping assignment 1. So go ahead, and if you've completed assignment 1 already, just write in the box, the chat box on the right, A1, so I know how many people have completed it. And I'm going to head over to that. So, assignment 1. So there are 2 parts to this, and that was mostly a timing thing for me, but it's a pretty quick assignment just to get you oriented a little bit. So a quick video reviewing what we did with Git, and then looking through this JavaScript reference. So what is a string is the first question. And I'm actually just going to pull this reference up right now because so that I have that as a resource. But I wrote a very quick example, so I'll just show you that now. That gives you an idea of what some of these things are. So we'll start with Sublime. Put example.js in here. Example, no. Let's see if I can get this open. Yeah, there we go. All right, so I wrote this quick example just to give you the answers and an idea of how you use them. So I'll make it bigger so it's easier to see. But so starting with a string. So basically where you see artist equals break, that is a string. A string is just like a line of text and it's enclosed by quotation marks. So if I created a variable called str, I can say this variable equals I am a string. So notice that it doesn't have to be one word, it can be a long line. You can actually put pretty much anything you want into a string with the exception of other quotation marks. So if I change this string variable and say I'm, let's see, I am here See, it doesn't even let me type like double quotes like that because it's so awkward now. So you see this isn't green because I've enclosed the string with these two quotations on this side and with one on that side. So don't do that. You'll get bugs. We don't want that. But let's say that you wanted to put a contraction in. You can easily do that with a single quote. So you can say, I'm here now, like that. Now, another thing about strings is you can also use single quotes to make a string. So I am here now. But the issue with that is if you wanted to put in a contraction, you're going to get something like that. Which means that every time you're writing a string, if you do have single quotes inside single quotes, you have to escape it with a slash that looks like that. And once you print that line, it will read properly. So you notice that it's all green. So that's basically strings. Okay, let's head back. All right, so the next thing is, what is a statement? I'm going to quickly go to that JavaScript page because I think it'll be easier this way. Load. Okay, so a statement. For example, the one that we used in the last session. So you can see that statement here. You're using document.getElementById. You're putting in the ID that we talked about from last session, and then you're telling the inner HTML, so the HTML that's in that ID element, and you're changing it to the string. And that's a statement. It's just instructions on what to do. I have another example of statement somewhere. Well, actually, statements can be a lot of things, right? So let's go back really quick. I asked what is an if-else statement, what's a return statement, what's a switch statement. So let's start with the if-else. I think I have an example of that. Yeah, at the end here. But I'll just type a quick one too. So for an if-else statement, you're saying like if something, let me put this in comment, if something, this is the syntax that you also use in JavaScript. So notice how I'm using parentheses and brackets. So if something, then do something, right? Like that. And then for your else statement, you're going to say else do something different, right? So that's an if-else statement. And then you can see this example of it below here. I said if lyrics .length is greater than 1, then it's going to console log this, and then else it's going to console log that. And I'll go back over what that means a little more in a sec. So then for a return statement, so going back here, I don't have any returns here, but for example, if I had an if-else statement, so like if 0, let's say, I could say return 0. So that's right here is a return statement. And what that does is basically gives, it gives whatever file that you're running an output. So you won't see it printed out like with the console.log, like you'll see not Drake printed out on your bash, but for this you won't actually see the 0. So let's say I had this within a function, so I just create like random function using this JS syntax here. And if I name this function like doit, for example, then whenever I call this doit function, the value that will be stored will be this 0. And then I can use that later on to manipulate it. So this might not make sense right now, that's okay, but it's just to give you an idea of what it looks like. All right. Also, please let me know how the stream is. If it's really bad and my voice is like really off with the video, please let me know. So if that is happening, then I can switch to a different live stream source that might make it a little bit easier. So I'm just going to type that just in case it's not going through. lagging, etc. Let me know. All right, great. So now a switch statement. So I also have an example here. And basically with the switch statement, you have, you switch the syntax here, and then different cases. So for example, this first case is lyrics 0. Another case is lyrics 1, another case is lyrics 2, and then 1 is the default. So basically if it's none of these three, it's going to default to this. And it's actually easier for me to explain that through the link that I put. I think I added this pretty late, so you might not have seen it, but I put this link here. So, open link tab. Yeah, load. And let me also change this display. Actually, no, you can see that. All right, so as you can see here, it's just this flow chart of how switch statements work. So right here where this like little ball is, that would basically be the word switch, and that's the syntax that you're using in JavaScript. And then here you would have your cases. You can have any number of cases you want, and then you would have a default if it's none of those cases. So for example, like if case 1, then yes, do this, and then break. And the break basically means that you're done. You don't want to evaluate anything else. Once you've done statement 1, then you're good, and you can go to the end here, the output. So if case 1, do that, but if not, then go to case 2. If case 2, do that. It's pretty straightforward. So that's how switch statement works. We're going to be writing one later today. So I wanted to give you an idea of kind of what that looks like. All right, onwards. So an array and a Boolean. So in my example here, is there an array? No, but I'll write one. Actually, yeah, there is. Ooh, but it's kind of hard to see. So let me go full view, just so that it'll be easier. And I'll make this bigger. Boom. Okay. So as you can see here, where it says var lyrics, I assigned an array to that variable lyrics. So remember that var stands for variable. I named this variable lyrics. It's the same as in math. You have like variable x, variable y, and you assign something to it with these equal signs. So I assigned an array, which I wrote here, lyrics to want to break songs, to the variable lyrics. So I know that it's an array because first I have these brackets. So brackets that look like this are array brackets. And second, I have multiple things within it. So an array can actually be of any size. So I can create like an R variable like that. And that would have an array length would be 0 there. But it can also have things within it. So I can also put lyrics within my array. And I could also put a string within my array. And I can just keep listing as many things as I want, basically, and do that. And you'll notice that the array also has some properties that I can call. So for instance, down here where I have my switch statement, I'm using lyrics for each of my cases. So basically what this is saying is that if I'm given lyrics 0, which is this right here, this is lyrics 0, then it's going to do that first thing and say not break, because he doesn't sing that part of the song, I think. If I'm given lyrics 1, which is the second one, then it's going to tell me break. And then if I'm given lyrics 2, which is actually the third one, then it's going to tell me what the song is. It's One Dance. I think that's what it's called. I honestly don't know for sure, but that's okay. So there are certain properties that I can use with this array called lyrics. Another one is getting the length. So if I do lyrics.length here at the bottom, it will actually tell me what the length is. And what I'm doing in this if-else statement is saying if the length of the array lyrics is greater than 1, evaluate this thing, and what I have is a console log. But if it's not greater than 1, then don't. Obviously right here, my lyrics array is greater than 1, so it's always going to say it's not just Drake. But like if I change it, for example, this array would be of size less than 1, and then it would say it's just Drake. That's what my console log would be. So this is incorrect. It's not a return statement. But yeah, so that's basically very, very basics of what we're doing for, that works. Okay, cool. Very basics of what we're going to do in JavaScript. Oh, and Boolean. So let me just go back to that real quick too. So a Boolean is a true or false. That's all it is. So here I'll just write right here, Boolean. So true, I can use this in a lot of different ways, and it evaluates as true. False, same thing. Notice that it becomes pink. So this is an actual like operator that I can use. If I have an if-else statement, you see how it automatically put in true for me. So whatever I put in this parentheses, it's going to evaluate, and if it's true, it's going to execute. So if I put like 1 equals 1, that is going to evaluate to true, and then it'll execute whatever I put in here. So return true, for example. If I put 0 equals 1, this is going to evaluate and become false, so it's not going to execute this. But if I added like an else statement, then when it executes, it'll give me false. So that's what a Boolean is, a true or false. And you can see here, it's the same thing, it's the same idea. If lyrics.length is greater than 1, then this is true, and it executes the first thing. Okay, so that is good. Let's get the split. And that. There's my face. Okay. Wow, it's super dark in here. Okay. So moving on now. Let me pull up this. Whoops, what did I do? I clicked something. Okay. So we went through that. I asked you to just look through the HTML objects reference just very quickly, just to get an idea of what some of those objects are. I'm not going to go back over that. Watched a short video about JavaScript, and so a lot of this should have been a review, because basically everything you needed to know about JavaScript was in that video. And then take the JS quiz, see how much you retained, and posted the questions on post questions that you got wrong on Facebook, and that was just so that I know like what things you still need the answer to, but it looks like everyone was fine, so it's all good. And then skim through this and just understand the difference between a class and an ID. So to recap, class is like a more general way to describe an element, and an ID is a very specific one, and it's only unique to that individual element. All right, part 1, downloading Homebrew. And Homebrew is a package manager, basically, so it allows you to download a bunch of other libraries that you need to. And for the next step, you were using Homebrew to download Node.js, so hopefully that worked out for everyone. Running Node in the command line. Let me just show that really quickly. And let's make this a ton bigger. Yeah, okay, that's pretty big. So let's actually put it up here. So for instance, if I type Node, what's going to happen is it's going to load for a little bit. And then it gives me this little arrow, and I can type JavaScript directly into my console. So, for example, I can create a variable called str and put a string in there. I'm Val. Notice how I put single quotes inside double quotes, and that's okay. And it returns like undefined here, but that's just because I'm not like evaluating anything really, I'm just assigning. So if I type in a string, it returns I'm Val. Great. And I can do a number of other things too. So I can create a variable called A, assign 1, create a variable B, assign 2, and I can use operators to add those things together, and it tells me 3. I can say if A is greater than B, console.log A is bigger. Yeah. And it's not, so it didn't do that. But now, if I click the up arrow, it'll give me the same statement that I just wrote into the console. So if I switch this, it logs in the console, A is bigger. So that's a really cool, handy tool if you need to practice your JavaScript and just do some very quick evaluations. It's a great way to do that. All right, so we keep going. It's been about 20 minutes now, so I'm gonna try to do this in chunks just because I feel like an hour straight is kind of a long time. So I'm going to finish running through assignment 1, and then once I've done that, I'll take like a quick 3-minute break and then come back. So we ran node, and then write in console it tells format. Okay. Basically, I'm not sure if everyone understood how to do this, so I'm going to actually just give the example. And here, so write in a console log that tells what day it is in a format like that. So create a variable d, so var d. And we notice that I don't have to actually assign anything to this variable when I create it. So I just did var d, and that was totally fine. So var d, and assign it to a new date object. So now I can say d equals new date, like that. Cool. And it actually evaluated new date, so it told me what it was. Today is the 22nd. Great. So now that I have this variable d, every time I type d, it'll give me the same thing, because it's a date object now. So I can use this property called toDateString to actually change the format of the way the date outputs. So if I do d.toDateString Thursday, July 21st. Oh, why did it say it's the 22nd? Time zone. That's why. All right. So yeah, notice that date gives you universal time, and then it actually converts it to your time zone when you do .toDateString. So yeah, so that's pretty much how you do that. It probably seems really easy now, and it's probably confusing the way I typed it out, but that's okay. All right, so moving on. The way to quit out of this is by clicking Control Z. Or I think you can type in quit like that. Yeah, and then, wait, no, it doesn't do that. Okay, quit doesn't work. Is it exit maybe? Nope. All right, but Control Z stops Node from running, and then you're out of it. All right, so now we're gonna create a new repository called S1 within Hackwit. I'm gonna cd so that I'm in Hackwit. I'm going to list to make sure I don't already have an S1, but I do, so I don't have to do a make dir there, so I'll just cd into S1. Oh, whoops, why did I do that? I cd'd back by accident. cd Hackwit S1. Let's see what's in here. Example.js, cool. Let's see if I have created a Git repository for this by clicking Git status. And it looks like no, I haven't. So I'm going to get init in S1. Initialize empty repository, great. And I'm going to, for now I'm not going to connect it to the repo, but what I will do is git add everything in S1, and then I'll commit, and I'll type in first commit. Cool. All right, and so I won't be able to get push at this point because I haven't connected it to an external repo. So, and yeah, I also posted the video for how to do this on the Hackwit website, so you should be able to get that there. So now I'm just going to take a quick break. And again, like, if the video stream is really bad, please let me know so that I can try to fix it. And yeah, that's all for now. Come back in like 3 minutes, let's say, so 8:58. All right. So we reviewed assignment 1, which is great, and we're going to go out of that. So we are going to start on session 1, for real. All right, so just did the first crank, and created our new repository in S1. Not going to set up the remote right now, but that's okay, because I don't really need it. And yeah, so the first thing I'm going to do is start creating index for our game. So let's go into Sublime. I'm going to get rid of this for now. And so just creating an index.html page, I can go to this bottom right corner here and type HTML so that it knows what format I'm in. I can go to Tools up here, click Snippets, and the first one, HTML, and it gives me like a really nice template. So let's say Val's JS game, whatever. Body HTML. You can also put the doc type, which at this point is more of a formality because we're using HTML5, but that's okay. So yeah. What else do we need in here? Yeah, and besides that, we don't really need anything. The only thing that I'm going to put in the body is a header, so I'll do h1, the h1 tag, and I'll put Hackwit Val JS game here. And I'll also put some instructions in a paragraph tag here. So, use WASD or arrow keys to move paddle and destroy the bricks. To move the paddle and destroy the bricks. Great. So that's pretty much all I need for that. I'm just going to save this. Save as. It's going to take a while to load all the millions of files that I have on my computer. Great. But I'm going to put this into S1. You can do it. Okay. Oh, okay, let me rename it. Index.html. Save. Great. Alright, so now that we've got the index created, the next thing that we want to do is put the canvas element in here. So basically the canvas is a really awesome tool in HTML5 where you can just write tons of things and it's interactive. So Canvas has a function called draw that allows you to loop, and basically what that means is that you can have animations, you can have user input, yeah, a lot of things, mostly things in motion that the canvas will be handling for you. And I'll go into detail about that pretty soon. So for now, we're going to put our canvas in, and all we have to do is type in canvas. Great, and we have it. A couple other things we're going to add is an ID, and this is going to allow us to reference the canvas in our JavaScript file once we create that. I'll call it game canvas. And the next thing is we want to give the canvas some dimensions. So we can't just have it freestanding here. We need to give it a size. So for the width, I'm going to assign 480, which is like pretty standard And then for the height, I'm going to give it 320. Great, so I have my canvas, and that's all I need to do for the HTML for that. There is one thing that I can do for styling it, and what I can actually do is, because there's so little on this HTML page, and there's so little styling that I need, I'm just going to put in a style tag here, and instead of sourcing to a CSS file, I'm just going to write all the styling straight into my HTML. So my canvas, because it is an element, it doesn't need any sort of fancy symbol before it. So for example, an ID would need a hashtag before it, hashtag game canvas. Or a class would need a dot before it. So like new class or whatever. But a canvas as an element doesn't need that. So here I'm going to put background, and I'm just going to give it a color. So let me actually make this a little more legible. Background, I'll give it a color. I'll just put CCC, which is a gray. Display, it kind of gives it like formatting for how it should display. So display is a block, which is pretty much the default. And then margin, I don't want any margins on top or bottom, and auto size left to right. So that's the styling for my canvas. And that's all the styling I need. I'm going to save that. And we are done with HTML. So we actually don't need any more HTML at all for this project. What I'm going to do next is create my JavaScript file. So I'm going to go here into, where is JavaScript? Right there, JavaScript. Yeah. And the very first thing I'm going to do, like we did last time, is put in my document ready function. So to do that, I'm going to do it the old school way. We did, new school last time, which is a really quick way to put in your document ready function, but I'll give you this example as well. So document, to call the document, which is going to be our index.html, dot ready is the property. Function here, and basically everything like that our code is doing is going to go inside this document ready function, which means that I'm going to put brackets here and enter, and everything else will be here. So code goes here, just like last time. Cool. So notice that like there's another way to write this document ready function. I'm just going to copy it, paste it in here, and it looks like that. So I just have my parentheses, I have function and this $sign to reference my document, and then tell it that it's using jQuery. And basically in these curly brackets is where I would write all my code. Code goes here. So that's an alternative, but either one will work fine. Oh, that reminds me. So there is one more thing that we need to do for our index.html. And hopefully someone caught up on that. Because it would be really bad if we didn't do this, then we wouldn't have anything working. So really quick, I'm just going to save this as game.js. Perfect. What we need to do is make sure that the index understands where it's reading the JavaScript. And we also need to put in jQuery. So we are going to go down to the bottom of the body here and put in the jQuery CDN, which I gave you last time. So you should just copy and paste that. And I'll give you a little bit of time to do that. So go ahead, find that jQuery CDN, copy and paste that in. You can, if you lost the link, you can easily just Google search that. And basically what you're doing is referencing a library of like everything that you will need for your jQuery, and that will allow all your JavaScript to run properly. So just a side note while you're pulling that up, an important reason to put this at the end of your HTML is so that everything loads on time and in an organized manner. Some people will suggest putting your JavaScript in the head, which is a bad idea, because basically what happens when the browser reads the HTML page is it starts from top to bottom, which means that you can have your JavaScript running before any of your HTML is loaded. And that means that you can have things moving in the background that the user won't be able to see, and that can cause a lot of user interaction problems. So it's always best to put JavaScript at the end after all the HTML is loaded, then load the JavaScript, move things around, have whatever interactions that you need to happen. All right, so we're going to put in a script tag here. Gives me the type by autofill, and we're going to put in our source. And this is the most important part, obviously, is telling HTML where to get this JavaScript file from. So the file is going to be retrieved from, because of the way I saved it, we're just going to be able to put in game.js. But notice that if you saved it in a folder called JS, for example, you would have to put in the file path, navigate to that folder in this source. So let's say that I did have a folder called JS. I would have to first put js/game.js to say, look in the JS folder, you'll find this. But also, because my index.html file is not in JS, I will have to go back up one level so that basically, like, let's say this orange marker is my index.html file, and like this blue one is my JS folder, then they have to be at the same level. And I use the 2 dots to make sure that that's true. And then once they're at the same level, I go down into game.js. So hopefully that little diagram makes sense. But basically that's it. And I can just save this now. Okay. That's good. So now, we only have 20 minutes left. It's less time than I expected, but that is okay. We've created a new repository, we created the index file, we put in the canvas element, we created the JS file, and we're actually going to start writing our JavaScript code. So, now that we have our document ready function, we can begin to do that. Sorry, I'm sniffling. Allergies. It's okay. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is input a variable called canvas. And this is just going to be the reference to our canvas element. So we're going to use a statement, document.getElement. Oh, it was autofilling it for me, but that's okay. By ID. And because we named the canvas element game canvas, for the ID here, we are going to put in game canvas. Great. So now we have this variable canvas that has this object stored in it so that we can use canvas for whatever we want, continuing on. So now, something interesting about canvas, the canvas element, is that it has a context. And this context allows whatever's on the canvas to render in the browser. So the context that we're going to be using is 2D, because we are only rendering in 2D. We don't need any 3D. So we are going to create a variable called ctx and assign to it canvas.getContext. So notice that we are getting, we're using this property on our canvas variable here. And the context that we're getting is 2D. Cool. Great. And now, we also want to give the canvas a background color. So I'm just going to demonstrate this to show that you can actually modify your CSS in your JavaScript as well. So as you see here, we did some styling there, but let's say I don't want to put in my background here. I want my JS to determine what the background color is for my canvas. So I can just put in this jQuery reference. Now, notice that it's a jQuery reference because I'm using a $sign. And whenever I use a $sign before parentheses, that means it's using jQuery. jQuery is like a shortcut to grabbing elements from our HTML. So we're just doing the $sign and putting in game canvas. Now, also an important thing is that when I wrote the JavaScript statement here, get element by ID, I didn't need a hashtag at the beginning of game canvas, even though the attribute is an ID. But here for jQuery, I need that hashtag to tell it that the attribute is an ID. So hashtag gamecanvas.css, applying the CSS property. I want to alter the background color, and then I want to give it some color. So what I did earlier was went to the website that I showed you last time, Palatable, I think it's called, .io, and I just grabbed some colors that I liked. So this one is using a hex code. It starts with, all hex codes start with hashtag 19A698. And that's just the color that I'm using. You can use any color you want. And you could also just type like right into here red if you wanted to, and that it would understand what that means. So like basic colors it'll understand. I wouldn't try things like maroon, that probably won't work, but I'm not really sure. Alright, so now we have this canvas and we have a background color. So what I'm going to do now is actually show you how this displays, and we also want to do this for testing purposes to make sure that it's actually working. So let me just quickly go out of this so that you get a full screen display. Here. Yes. Okay. And yeah, this is going to start looping like crazy, but go away, YouTube. Alright. So now that I've created this file, what I can do is view it in my browser. To do that, I just need to put in the file path. So first I'll just demonstrate through Finder. Let's give a new Finder window here. I'm going to show you where I actually put these files. So I'll go to My Documents, go to Hackwit S1, and you can see in S1 I have my index and my game.js. I also have this example. But these are the two important ones. So what I can do is actually just drag this directly into my browser, like that, and it will load the page for me, slowly but surely. Great. So cool, I have my file path here, which is users, business, documents, Hackwit, S1, index.html. I have this header, this paragraph, and then my canvas is drawn right there. So you can see like these are the dimensions that I gave it. That's how it renders. Now right now my canvas isn't doing anything, but that's going to change. So let's get back to where we were. Sublime. Alright, so I know that it's working, it rendered, that's all good. If I want to make sure that my JavaScript is working properly, that I don't have any typos or anything like that, I can even do a console log. So I'm going to do that right now, console log JS works. And I'm going to go back and just check that, and a really simple way to check that my JS is working is to inspect element. So I right click, click inspect, using the Chrome browser right now. Load, load, load. A lot of it is waiting for things to load. I have an old computer. And let's see what my console says here. It says error file not found, game.js. Okay, so for some reason it's not finding my file, which means that I inputted the file path incorrectly in my HTML, and it's likely I forgot a slash. Oh, actually I just saved it as the wrong thing for that example. So game.js, because they're in the same folder. And let's go back and reload, and that looks more like it. So this is the blue, well, green, blue, whatever, that I use for the background of my canvas. And you can see that it renders properly, and the console says JS works. So that's awesome. All right, let's go back. So in our game.js file, we now know that everything's working. Oops. What did I do? Okay. Delete that. And we have our canvas set up. Now we want to start our game. So the first thing that we need for our game is a ball, because this is going to be like a brick game, basically. So you have a little ball, it hits the bricks and destroys them, and you control a paddle to bounce the ball off of. So the first thing we're going to do is create the ball. We'll create a variable first called active, and we're going to set it to a boolean called true. So this variable is going to tell us that the game is active. We're going to create another variable called ball radius. This is going to determine the radius of the ball, pretty straightforward. We also want to give the ball like a size, obviously, and placement. So the first thing is we're going to give it an x coordinate, and we are going to use the size of the canvas to determine where the ball should be. So we're going to do canvas dot width and divide that by 2. And if you think about it, like if this, like for example, if my phone, right, is the canvas, then, and this is like the bottom, 0, 0 of a coordinate plane, then the width of my canvas divided by 2 is going to be right in the middle. That should be pretty intuitive too. The height of my canvas is going to be from here to here. All right, so the ball is going to be halfway to the middle of my canvas, and then a little bit, well, okay, let me explain height, because that's not exactly the way you think of it. My little diagram there was not the best example, because actually in Canvas, the coordinate plane 0, 0 is not the bottom. It's actually the top. It's still on this your left side, I guess, but it's going to be the top part here. So this is 0, 0 on the x-axis, 0 on the y-axis. 0 is going to increase to infinity going that way, so 0 here, infinity there. And for your y-axis, you're going to start with 0 here, and infinity actually goes down. So just try to remember that. Like every time you want something to go lower, you're going to be increasing the height. Okay, so that means that if we're using the height of the canvas, it's actually here. 0, 0 is here, and height of canvas is here. So if we want something in this range, it just has to be a little less than the height of the canvas, and we can get it in there. Which means that when we're placing our ball, we have it halfway through the width, which means in the center, and then we subtract from the canvas height to get it actually within the bounds that we need it. So we're just going to subtract 30. So that's the ball, and we are also going to give the ball a color. So we just put var ball color is equal to, and I pre-selected these colors, so BFB D1D. Cool. So now we have all these variables. Notice that these variables are just freestanding, and what we call freestanding variables are globals. So global variables. Var canvas and var ctx are also global variables. But I'm going to organize it this way just to say, like, these are the variables that go for the game, so global game variables. All right, so now that we've got that, we want to actually be able to see our ball on the canvas. In order to do that, the first thing we're going to do is write a function that says to draw the ball. So function, draw ball. Notice the syntax here. And a function is exactly like, it's like the same thing as in math. So I'm going to quickly just like draw a little sketch of what that is. So let's say that we have like y equals mx plus b here, right? Like that's a function in math. What you can do is f of x equals mx plus b. It's like very similar to what we're doing here. We have f, we have parentheses. So that's going to basically be the same, except the f is the word function. And we input some x, and we have some like variables that we defined beforehand, m and b, and then it gives us some output, right? So it's the same exact thing that we're doing in JavaScript. What we're doing is we're creating a function. So I'm going to write on this function, and we're giving it some variable, and then we manipulate that variable later. So like this is just the basic like outline here below. Let me write a line. Below the line is just a basic outline. So notice that in our function, if we put a variable x, we can use that variable x again. And remember that this x can be anything we want it to be. So we could put a string in here, we could put a number in here, we can put some other object in here, anything. We could even put another function in here if we wanted to. And so we could say that we want to add x to 2, and what this would do is just add 2 to x. And well, actually, sorry, it's a pretty bad example, because what it would actually do is give you x plus 2, but it wouldn't change what x actually is. If we wanted to change what x was, we would have to do plus equals 2, and that would add 2 to x. Okay, hopefully that makes sense to everyone. And hopefully it makes sense in the code too. So what we're doing in our function draw ball is not basic math operations, but we are going to use the ctx variable that we created, and we're going to call a function called begin path. And basically what this does is just says, we're going to start drawing to the canvas now. We want our ball to be round, obviously, and Canvas has built-in functions to do that. It has an arc, and all we have to do is say where the ball is. So it's at x and y, which we defined above. We have to say what the radius of the ball is, and we already defined that, so ball radius. And then we have to say how many degrees we want it to go around. So we start at 0, and it can go a number of degrees. Let's say we wanted it to go 10 degrees, we could just put in 10. But because we want our ball to be like a full circle, what we're going to do is start at 0 and do a little math using the JavaScript math that allows us to call pi. And math pi will be like, what would that be, like half of a circle? But we want the full thing, so we're going to multiply that by 2. Perfect, and that will give us a full circle for our ball. So now we want to make sure that this ball has its color, and to do that we just do ctx.fill_style, and we're going to set that equal to ball color. And we also we need to close that fill by saying like actually fill it, which is calling this fill function. The last thing we want to do is close the path to say we're done drawing now. Close path. Great. So we have a function that draws the ball. Now, we've done all this setup, but we still won't have the ball on the canvas. The last thing that we're going to do for today, and the last thing that we need to do to make sure that we actually have a ball, is create a draw function. Now, the draw function is the most essential piece of this because it actually puts things on the canvas for us to see and interact with. Within the draw function, we are going to put our draw ball function. So it's important to note that the draw function loops, and it's going to constantly loop throughout the entirety of the game. So the same way like you have a film strip, right? Like old films, where they're just like a series of pictures, even current films, just like a series of pictures shown very, very quickly one after the other. That's exactly what draw is going to do. So we put draw ball in there, and outside of that function, what we want to do is call set interval. And what set interval does is it's going to perform that loop for us. It's going to perform the loop on draw, and then we can determine how many times we want the frames to run. So we're going to put in 10. You definitely want something below 60 so that it actually shows as being smooth. And that's our frame rate there. Okay. And set interval calls the draw function for us. And notice that when we call this function, we don't need parentheses behind it. We can just put draw. Great. So now let's go back and see. Whoa, why did I put Sublime? No, I did not mean to do that. Let's try to go to Finder. Sublime, open back up. Okay. But anyway, we're going to see what happens on our canvas now. And I'm just going to put this on display. Yes, display. Cool. So we're going to reload this page, hopefully. And notice that we now have a ball. It doesn't do anything, but it's there. And that's basically the beginning of how we draw. Now, real quick, I'm going to show you how we can get the ball to move. And so we're going to go back into Sublime. Well, we're going to go back into Sublime in a second once this starts working. Okay, that's not going to work. Alright, so we're going to go back into Sublime. You can see on the right I already wrote out most of this code, but and what we want to do is within this function draw, what we want to do is basically say like if the game is active. So we're going to use an if statement here. We want it to do something. And we're going to tell it to displace the ball. So all we have to do that is change the x value and change the y value. So let's start with x. We'll say if the game is active, add 1 to x on every frame. And you can see that the ball is moving. But notice that there's this line connecting it because the frames aren't deleting themselves. They're all staying. So first let's add 1 to y plus equals y. And what that does is like every time it runs, it's just going to keep incrementing by 1. This goes diagonally down. Now remember that adding 1 to the height, which is our y, goes down instead of back up. So if we wanted it to go up, we could just say subtract 1. Now the last thing that we're going to do for today is to clear the canvas so that instead of it being this line, we just have the ball moving. And all we have to do is be able to delete the frames for that. And so we have this function. I'll just copy and paste this. The first thing we write in draw is to delete the previous frame. So it's ctx.clear_rect with a capital R. And this is just saying clear this section of the canvas. Because we want it to be the entire canvas, we start at 0, 0. So that's our coordinates. And 0, 0, remember, is up here in this area where my mouse is. And we go to the canvas width and the canvas height. So from here, we are going to go the entire width and the entire height. That means it's just clearing the entire canvas. So now we just save that in there, and what we'll see is that the ball actually moves at a steady rate. All right, and that's all we have time for tonight. But for the next session, we'll just continue working on JavaScript, and we will spend the entire hour completing the game. Yep, and that's it. So thank you so much for joining, and I will see you next time.